All right, I'll call this meeting in order at 12 o'clock. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Mike Labar. Can you hear me, Chair?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, Chair, I cannot. So I was calling roll call. Mike Labar,
Present?
Matt Simus, Mark Gonzalez,
Present.
Deirdre Sullivan,
Here.
Ken Eklund,
Here.
Mike Scatini, Jason Smith, and Marvin Borzini.
Guess Eva doesn't want me on the board. I don't.
John Bailey,
Here.
Thank you, Eva. Okay, we'll be going into closed session. We have one item. We'll be talking about 2 matters of significant exposure. Is there any member of the public who speak on any of the closed session items? I see none online. There is none in the chambers. I will close public comment, and we will now recess into closed session. Thank you. All right, we are finished with our closed session at 1:03 PM. Council, was there any reportable actions from the closed session?
None today, Chair.
Thank you. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right. Eva, was there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
For action item 6, staff presenting will be Elise Harden.
Elise Harden, okay. All right, we'll now move on to public comment. Is there any member of the public who can speak on any item that is not on the agenda?
No hands raised.
And none in the chambers. We'll close public comment, and now we'll move to presentations. Our first one is the San Antonio Spillway Replacement Project Update. Elise Harden. Oh, wait a second, did I? Yeah, presentations. Go ahead.
I don't think I timed my coffee well enough. Good afternoon, Elise Harden, Senior Engineer, Water Resources Agency, presenting this afternoon on an update to the spillway replacement project at San Antonio Dam. So just a recap on previous presentations that we've done for this project. If you can remember, back in June of this year, we presented on the alternatives analysis, a pretty technical report, and I went over the overview of what that all encompass for those 10 alternatives. We also presented the same presentation at Board of Soups and then the San Luis Obispo County Water Commission. A quick recap on what that presentation was on, just why we did it, and of course because it's mandated by Division of Safety of Dams, or DSOD, originating from the emergency that occurred over at Oroville. We did evaluate 10 alternatives for that report, and what we did was we varied the two different locations, the existing alignment versus a new alignment, and we varied the control structures, an OG or passive structure versus a gated, and then also varied 2 terminal structures of a type 1 and type 2, and more simplified of that is a shorter or longer terminal structure with varying energy dissipation concrete blocks. Ultimately, we determined that alternative 4, which consisted of the existing location, an OG structure, and a type 2, or the shorter version of the terminal structure, was the primary or the recommended alternative for an estimated cost of approximately $51 million. And I just caveat that number as always, but those are estimates and as of that time and are not total capital costs, just construction. So just an image of what those 3 selections was going to be the passive OG, the terminal structure would be to the right top photo there, and then the existing alignment, less the super elevation, which is just that vertical curvature or vertical slope to it on the curve there. So just the update that I'm here to present to you today is what's changed since I last spoke to you guys on that alternative number 4. During the project or review of that report prior to submitting to DSOD, if you can remember, that was our next step. The project team determined that the alternative 4, if we look just a little bit closer at it, with the approach of looking at potentially retrofitting the existing OG versus full replacement, we did determine that there was some cost savings there. So alternative 11 is what we came up with, which essentially would be retrofitting the existing OG instead of a full replacement, and then everything else would still need to be pulled out and be constructed brand new. The look of this would be similar to, if you can remember, the Nacimiento project, where they did sister walls to the existing wall structures and then also retrofitted the OG. That's the approach this one would take. And I'm just gonna, sorry about that. And then just a reminder there that any selected alternative would still require DSOD approval, and all costs are still preliminary. Some of the pros to this would be that we wouldn't have to rip out the existing OG that's been determined by GEI in that condition assessment, that it doesn't, there's no deficiencies identified, or it's still in relatively good condition, so it's still good concrete. So that is a pro to this. And for the DSOD submittal, it was submitted on September 19th, 2024, so of this year. And within our submittal, we also requested an extension to the November 1st, 2024 deadline to extend it to December 31, 2031. That would be inclusive of full final design, all environmental permitting, and full construction, closeout, and approval by DSOD. So that is a longer timeline, but it's inclusive of everything. We also requested a response to our alternatives analysis by the end of this calendar year. So if we were to receive a response from DSOD, either saying, here are our comments, or make these changes, or you're authorized to move forward with your design, we would start in January of next year, 2025, and then begin our environmental and design phase, with the final bid package being June 2028. And final bid package, of course, means start of construction would then follow. And the estimate start for that would be 2028. And final completion, again, 2031. Happy to take any questions, sorry.
Thank you, Elise. Appreciate the presentation. So board members will start. Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you, Elise, for that presentation. So if the OG doesn't need to be changed, then the timeline, that actually shortens, in other words, that's work that doesn't have to happen. How much time saving overall in the...
There would still be work that needs to happen on it. So I think I brought this up at the committee meeting. So if, I don't know if the mouse can work here. So this approach wall here, or can you guys see? There we go. This approach wall here would need a sister wall to support it. And then I believe there's also an extension to it. And then only this portion, and this one as well, sorry, that approach wall as well. But only this portion essentially would stay. Everything else still needs to come out. So only these items here.
Okay, thank you.
Other board members, any questions or comments?
So everything is going to remain on our property? We don't have to look for utilizing other properties?
Correct. If you can remember, I know it was a while back, and there was a lot of information, but the one that did potentially have some property issues was the straight alignment. This one, if it's going to be in the existing footprint, we would not need any additional right-of-way or property.
And then just for clarification, so what we're looking at is alternative 4, which is the full bid, full build out, and then alternative 11, those will be the two that DSOD will be considering?
So we submitted the entire report to DSOD.
Oh, with all the alternatives?
Correct. So the report that we included alternative 11. That's why there was the 3-4 month delay on the submittal, was because we incorporated alternative 11 to the report. And we also recommended alternative 11 to DSOD in our final, as this is what we were asking for. So to be clear, we did request alternative 11, which is this sister wall existing OG is going to remain. We're still in that big note there at the bottom we're still at the, kind of mercy of DSOD what they like and what they're willing to accept for our proposal.
I got one question. On that, can we go back to the previous slide there? The bridge that's there, there's nothing we're going to have to do to that bridge with us in the demolition, no retrofitting of the bridge?
The existing alignment is all we're talking about when we're saying that's what's going to remain. Everything's coming out, so everything would need to be removed. So we would still need new construction access, and then I believe build-out shows 2 access roads crossing it. I believe there's one up here, kind of in this area, and then one down here as well.
That's a bridge there, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
you're saying that's going to have to get removed and replaced?
Correct. The entire chute is coming out, so it'll be removed, but ultimately we'll have 2 access roads.
And that's in the total bid? That's
Correct.
encompassed inside of the bid?
In the conceptual design we have right now for what we're going to do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. Related question. So what is the total capacity that our outlets can do at San Antonio?
So I believe right now we're under the kind of modified rule curve or more restrictive rule curve because of this mandate. I don't know that number off the top of my head. I'm trying to, because we have different max elevations, which changes what we can output for our low-level outlet works. But our existing structure, spillway structure, I believe it's 38 or 36,000 CFS. But of course, we're trying to not get there.
Right.
We're trying to stay well below that with that rule curve.
But you're going to go two winters without a spillway.
Correct.
Basically. So basically what my question is, okay, obviously you're going to manage that reservoir much more conservatively.
Correct.
And but if you had to, if you saw storms coming, how much water could you get out of there just through the outlets?
I believe that modified rule curve accounts for the PMF as it sits today. So I think that that's still something we're watching and are aware of. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Let me go to the public. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item?
No hands raised.
I see none in chambers, so thank you, Elise. We appreciate the
I've
presentation.
got, excuse me, Chair, I after that last question of Ken's, San Antonio spilled twice in 58 years, 60 years. And we're talking about a build-out starting construction. I thought your slide said 2029, 2028?
28, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got roughly
Alternative.
4 years to play with water. I think the outflow of San Antonio, when we opened it up, I thought it was better than 4,000 cubic feet a second when we cranked that thing open.
It's all elevation dependent. That's what
Yeah,
that
no,
rule-
that's correct, because at one point we were so low we couldn't release any water through the outlet. The scenario with timing, so we're talking about construction starting in 28.
Tentative.
Depending what DSOD, what hoops they make us jump through. We still need to line 50% of that inner tunnel.
Correct.
Because of potholes. And we've been setting aside money every year for 5 years because it's going to cost us another $500,000. Can this be done in coordination when we're doing all the work at San Antonio?
So that's why I brought up, if you can remember the previous presentation, that's why I kept kind of alluding to that low-level outlet works string of projects. I believe it's 7 to 8 projects for the low-level outlet works, the coating being one of the last ones that can happen. So there's a sequencing that's necessary just due to safety, and there's hatches that need to be installed prior to people getting in. It's confined space. So that is one of the last items in the sequence. The reason I've been bringing it up at all these spillway replacement projects updates is that we don't know what DSOD will require of us. We know we have these identified projects. Right now, we don't know if they're going to require us to do something before we get started or break ground. So this is all we're waiting for that response on everything we're presenting to them now.
Well, I've had the opportunity with Chair Hart, when he was still chair of the board, to walk in that tunnel and to actually see the potholes and saw the process of 50% being sprayed. Now, I believe we've been setting money aside for 3 years.
That's correct.
Okay, so we only need another 2 years, which would be 2026. Can we actually do the work prior to the major construction on the reservoir? I mean, have you thought about that option?
We've definitely thought about it. Right now, they're not mandated projects. The spillway is. That's where we're in this. Is DSOD going to require it? It's also, we can't do, the coating is what's being set, money's being set aside for the coating specifically. But as I mentioned, there's all these other projects that need to occur first. Like, for example, the bulkhead gate, that needs to be replaced first. So we need funding and a project to be completed there first because of safety. They can't get into the tunnel to coat it because it's confined space. The hatches, again, that needs to be funded. It's all this sequencing. So the coating, yes, is being set aside. There's the money's getting built up, but there's also the projects that just have to come prior to that are unfunded.
The potholes were bad when I walked in that tunnel and actually saw them. You could stick your finger into the, the tunnel. So that is something that was, and unfortunately, we did the 50% that goes out, and now the next 50% is from halfway in all the way to
Correct. We've completed the upstream of the butterfly.
Now we got to do the downstream. Boy, I'd sure like to see that get done quicker than later, because even if your timeline looks great, but let's be realistic.
Yeah, and that's what, again, we've applied for a grant. There was the grant we submitted an interest in. We're looking at other grants to fund it all. I believe the total for that low-level outlet sequence of projects is $7 to $8 million. Again, there's reservoir elevation, things to look at, all of that to do some of these. Some would require dives and things like that. So, yes, it's definitely on our radar. We're looking for funding for it, and we don't know if DSOD will mandate that prior to, but it's definitely a high priority.
Yeah, well, and any delay you have in doing the construction work, I mean, I hate to see you delay all the projects. You've got to prioritize something. Secondly, on your alternate 11 and 4 and 11 that you've sent to DSOD, what are ramifications that DSOD comes back and says, fine, do it? What guidelines are we going to have to change on our releases for environmental issues? Are any of those mandates going to change since we are changing the structure and going to remodel the release program? Are the no fisheries and people are going to come to us and say, okay, now that you've changed all this, we're going to rework your.
Sure, and that's why if you remember on the slide, it said environmental will start in January, because we're waiting for DSOD's buy-in on what that project description is even going to be and look like. And until we know that, we can start our environmental process. So that's why January is going to be that time where we decide or know what is going to be
mandated.
Yeah, what project it actually be, because we can recommend and ask for a certain alternative, and DSOD could say yes with these edits, or no, we like alternative 7, and we'll have to run in that direction. But that will all change how our environmental process.
Okay, so let's just use your example. Say they go to number 7. What if we don't like number 7? What if we do nothing then? Say, hey, you know what? We don't like number 7. We're going to leave the status quo.
Then that will be up to them to provide, start coming down with additional mandates, restrictions, storage restrictions. I mean, we don't know what that would entail, but we are mandated to comply or receive their whatever that comes with.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We'll close this item. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Any board members want to pull any of the items? Is there any member of the public who can speak on any of the consent agenda items?
No hands raised.
In the chambers, I'll bring this back to the board for
Make a
action.
motion to accept the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
First with John, second with Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Now move on to our action items. Number 6, consider approving an agreement for services with Don Chapin Company for amount not to exceed $126,000. Jason? Oh, that's right. And I have my note here, Elise.
So we just need to get cozy because I think I have 3 today. Okay. So covering for Jason Demers on this one. This is in relation to the Blanco drain. So today's action is to consider approving an agreement with the John Chapin Company for an amount not to exceed $126,000 for work related to a damaged section of the culvert at the Blanco drainage ditch, and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement. So there was no prior committee action on this item. So the agency owns and maintains a culvert and flapgate located in the Blanco drain that provides drainage from the surrounding agricultural fields located in Storm Drain Maintenance District Number 2. The culvert and overlying road were damaged during the winter storms of 2023. And a recent agency assessment of the culvert identified an approximate 1-foot opening that could allow for high river flows to move upstream into the drainage ditch. There's some photos soon, so this might make a little bit more sense. So you can see the erosion here. And this is that offset or break in that culvert that you can see in this photo here. So the plan to repair includes the excavation of the eroded area around the culvert, and through this evaluation and a thorough evaluation of the damage, so there is some access issues with trying to fully assess what's going on, so the excavation will provide some additional information on what needs to occur, but for the most part, we know what we want to do. It will include the removal of the damaged section of the culvert and preparing of the foundation and installation of a new culvert, backfill the excavated area, and then culvert preparation and installation of a concrete canvas and lining to merge the new and existing sections of the culvert. The completed repair will ensure proper drainage from the Blanco drain to the Salinas River, prevent possible backflow from the river and related flooding during high winter flows, and prevent further erosion of the overlying road. And preventing further damage to the outfall will prevent possible backflow issues during the next SRDF operational season. The financial impact will be about an amount not to exceed of $126,000 paid from Fund 111 and 134, or SRDF. So once again, today's action is to consider approving an agreement for services with the John Chapin Company of an amount not to exceed $126,000 for work related to the Blanco drainage ditch, and authorize the general manager to execute the agreements.
Thank you, Elise. Board members, any comments or questions? Yes, Mike.
Thank you for the presentation. I noticed that M1 Water had not been using the Blanco drain source waters for a substantial amount of time, and just recently they turned that back on again. Is that so that we can do the work?
I think Shauna's going to assist here.
Hi, Shauna Murray, Deputy General Manager. We have coordinated with Monterey One Water as far as if we get into a bind, we were going to ask them to use the pump station, but right now they're operating independently based on the water needs they have. But they are a backup plan if we get inundation to the site.
Any other questions or comments? Just curious on this one. So when we have work done like this, do the companies provide a warranty for a certain amount of time on the services?
Yeah, I believe it's in our standard agreement, but construction warranty, yeah.
All right, thank you. Let me take this to the public. Is there any member of the public who speak on this item?
No hands raised.
In chambers, I'll bring this back to the board for action.
Make a motion to approve.
First and a second. All in favor? Aye. Against? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to item 7.
Chair, can we get who seconded on that, who motioned second on that? The mic was not on.
John, yeah, John was the first. Deidre was the second. I apologize for that. I usually say that. Item number 7, consider approving amendment number 1 to the professional agreement with Macmillan Inc. and B, authorizing a service agreement with Macmillan, and C, authorizing general manager to execute the agreement. Elise.
All right, so we're nice and cozy. So again, today's action is approving amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Macmillan to increase the dollar amount by $27,260 for a total contract amount not to exceed $461,760 or $1,460 for work related to the San Antonio Spillway Replacement Project, and authorize a professional services agreement with Macmillan in the amount of $1,445,000 to provide engineering design services for the Spillway Replacement Project, and authorize the general manager to execute the agreements. Prior board action, in September 2023, the board of directors authorized the PSA with Macmillan for $500,000. And on October 4th, 2024, the Finance Committee recommended today's action. So just some background, again, reiterating what that September 2023 PSA was for the probable maximum flood update, or PMF, and the design alternatives analysis report, which we just completed. That $434,500 was funded by Fund 116 and SLO County, and there are the estimates there, asterisks referring to the SLO County agreement, and that's estimated at 33%, so those are the breakdown numbers there. During the final review of the alternatives analysis report, which I alluded to in my previous update, the project team determined an additional 11th alternative should be included and evaluated within the report. That additional alternative was a total of $27,260 and is funded by SB 104. And just the asterisk there is there's no SLO County contribution on the state funds. So again, just reminding everybody, we did receive the grant for SB 104 in May 2024. And in order to aid in the tracking of the project and grant expenditures and to increase administrative efficiencies, the agency is proposing to begin a new agreement with Macmillan for these services on the final engineering design. The PSA scope will provide the remaining engineering design service tasks. These are the ones that would be starting in January for the spillway replacement project for the amount not to exceed $1,445,000. And once this new contract is approved, the agency will terminate the existing 2023 agreement or that consulting contract. Financial impact, a breakdown, I mentioned the numbers previously. This is just what they look like. So the new contract amount would not exceed $461,760. And the final contract there, of course, with all the funding mechanisms to the right with the notes. So again, today's action is to authorize the amendment, approve the new services agreement, and authorize the general manager to execute.
Thank you, Elise. Board members, comments or questions on this? Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item?
No hands raised.
Seeing none in chambers, I'll bring this back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first with Jason, a second with Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Move on to item 8, key information of calendar events. Any board members, any questions on any of the months that are listed?
We've got, they got Res Op down for Thanksgiving on the is Thanksgiving the 28th of November? Yeah, so that'll be changed, that date. Usually we try to combine November and December into one meeting, so we'll figure that out
Okay.
at our meeting at the end of the month. I think that was the only one I had.
Any other board members? Any member of the public want to comment on this item?
No hands raised.
In chambers, we'll move on to item 9, general manager's report. Ara?
Yes, good afternoon, directors.
if I can pull this up. And how do we share F5? All right. There we go. So the agency was invited, so under the personnel update, the agency was invited to present our 2024 Equal Opportunity Plan to the Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights Advisory Commission. That meeting was originally scheduled for last week and was postponed due to lack of quorum. But I thought it would be worthwhile to walk you all through that presentation for the commission. We begin the presentation with the WRA vision statement, which is to be recognized throughout the region as a leader in water resource management through demonstrated knowledge, integrity, and the quality of our actions. The report focuses on the Water Resources Agency's personnel and demographics. So this is the organizational chart as it was in February of this year, and how our positions are divvied up by area of expertise. So we have maintenance with the largest segment, and of course, no surprise, given what we do, that maintenance, environmental and permitting, dam safety, and operations make up the lion's share of our positions. The demographics of our positions are listed here for the 37 full-time employees that we have. And the we report out the job groups and what the county refers to as minority availability. This is something that the county does under an agreement that it had reached many years ago called the Garza Decree. The Resources Agency itself is not subject to the Garza Decree, but nonetheless, we do report as if we were to the county on an annual basis. And so you can see by job group area how the agency is meeting the requirements that are on the county under the Garza Decree. In 2023, there was a lot of effort in terms of HR work, but unfortunately, while we were successful in 7 new hires, we also had 7 separations, and then we also had a number of promotions from within, which is great. So our recruitment outreach, so this is from the particular goal here is from the strategic plan. Monterey County Water Resources Agency acts with openness, honesty, and consistency, showing no favoritism and utilizing professional standards for decision making. Of course, when we're doing recruitment, we collaborate with other professional organizations in trying to ensure that we have as broad a net as possible. We are subject to the county's hiring process, so a lot of the positions or the applicants that we receive that make it ultimately to an interview are generally screened by the county itself. And on some occasions, we might be asked to provide subject matter experts to help review those applications. But the applications don't come to us, directly most of the time. The referral is made, by HR to the agency, and then the interviews are scheduled. And if a qualified applicant presents themselves, then, of course, the offer is made and they are onboarded. And so that was the presentation I was going to do for the commission. And once they reschedule, it's the presentation I will do for the commission. And I'll pause there to see if there are any questions. I've got just a quick one. Does Water Resource Agency fall under the restriction now the board has implemented with a hiring freeze? No, the hiring freeze applies to departments or positions that are funded through the general fund.
All right, please continue.
Sure. So moving on to dam safety funding, Elise had updated the board on the status of the San Antonio Spillway Replacement Project. On the dam safety funding side, the agency met with the county's chief administrative office to discuss roles and responsibilities in terms of potential issuance of debt. And so the agency
refinanced debt in 2018. And as we look forward to the potential to issue debt again to support the dam safety projects, wanted to understand, the county's view on how we move forward, because it would very much, define the steps that we had to take. It was a very helpful and constructive meeting, and I'd like to thank Kelly for the research that she did, and in terms of finding historical documents. We still have some more work to do. The short of it is the county will look to the agency as an independent legal entity, which we are, to make decisions about the expertise we want to bring in terms of municipal advisors, bond counsel, and so forth. They understand the importance of working with folks that are expert in the water world. It has its own nuances, such as the EPA's WIFIA loan, as an example, and the Army Corps equivalent. So we want folks that are expert in those, with those particular tools. There is a financing authority already in place, so that's something we don't have to create. It may be dormant, and so more investigation there. But I think we're in a good place to begin looking at the future. As Elise had indicated, if the schedule holds, then we'd be aiming to go to construction in 2028. We have bond grant funding to carry us through 2027, which is quite fortunate, and so we're asking ourselves that, what happens in year 4 kind of question, and recognizing how quickly the time can go, getting started on that sooner rather than later. So looking forward over the next, 6 months to a year, there's a few different pieces that I imagine will be coming together to help inform future decisions. One, of course, is the update to the historical benefits analysis. When the agency last tried to develop a new funding stream, there was a lot of concern about the age of the HBA, and so that's being updated with funding from the Interlake Tunnel Project. We expect that to be complete by the end of the year, and look forward to stakeholder engagement on, what we got right, what we got wrong. We'll also begin thinking about what funding alternatives might look like. There are some that have suggested that PAYGO may be a viable approach to all of this. There's, bond funding, there's government loans, and all of them have different implications. So we're going to begin to build out hypothetical scenarios about what those could look like, so folks can begin to weigh some of the differences and some of the pros and cons. In the immediate world, in terms of dam safety funding, we have updates from the county's auditor controller's office on fund balances from the former fiscal year, and we are seeing some significant changes in Fund 116 have occurred. And so we're reevaluating what that means from a budgeting perspective. Right now, we're projecting a fairly significant deficit, but we'll be dealing and looking into that in more detail, and be circling back with the Finance Committee if any particular action needs to be taken. And then, looking further down the road a bit and into the next year, this idea of establishing a regulatory fee for the dam safety projects. So much of what we do today is driven by DSOD and FERC, and there's a lot of time that goes into that, that we need to be able to establish a stable revenue source for, because those sort of letters that we get from them, most of the time they aren't nice to haves. They are, they are things that we need to go do. And so we'll be looking to begin that work somewhere in early 2025. And so that's the dam safety funding update.
A couple of questions. You said the HBA report end of 2024. Well, a couple of weeks were November. Will we have it in December?
We expect to have it, by the end of the calendar year. So it could be early January.
Oh, okay. So now January. But by next 90 days, we'll have it.
Yes, that's what I.
And that'll be presented to the committees or to the board?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the Fund 116 is bothersome, especially with the deficit that the county's looking at and the big picture. And it's kind of hard to look out more than 12 months because we don't know how that's going to change. What do we have options?
We do have options. We're reviewing the list of projects that we had identified for this current fiscal year to see, you know, are they realistic? Are they going to get done? Are there savings to be had there? We're also working hard to move as much of the work into the grant-funded areas as we can. So we're fully utilizing those dollars. And so those are the kinds of options that we're looking at.
Any other board members, any questions or comments?
All right. CSIP update, just two things quickly. We did terminate the Salinas River Diversion Facility operations last week, so on Friday. So that'll be the end of the season. It will be near record setting. It'll be the second or third most greatest amount of river water diverted since the project came online. So it was a good run of the river this year. The impoundment will begin to drop now and over the course of the next couple weeks. And so those changes are underway. The other thing we wanted to just report is following the budgeting process that we went through this past spring with respect to CSIP and its related projects. One of the things that we did was to hold a growers workshop to begin to talk with them about the different projects and how the agency was viewing the system status and the activities that we were proposing to go forward. One of the things that we heard from the stakeholder community was interest in us doing that more regularly. We've talked about this with the Water Quality and Ops group as well. So we have scheduled another growers workshop for October 30th. We are, basically one quarter into the new fiscal year, so a lot of the numbers that we're presenting are going to be in good flux, but we're going to look back at some of the projects that we've completed, look back at what was being proposed in the spring time frame, talk about what's changed since then, and then begin to preview some of the things that need to be done in the near future, and so that growers can begin to get a sense of what kind of range are we thinking about with respect to the water delivery fee, and so we'll have that conversation with them here next week. And we'll again commit to them that, come next late winter, early spring, as the agency is going through its 2025-6 budgeting cycle, that we will again host another growers workshop so that their input, that they can feel confident that their input, will be heard along the way. So there'll be opportunities for engagement for them. So that's coming up next week.
And I just wanted to say thank you too on ARA for that. Because we had that conversation, we also heard that many contracts were in place and the importance for the growers to get information prior to writing those contracts. And I really appreciate you making sure we're getting ahead of that, so that gives them the ability to have better understanding, as you said, of the costs that may or may not be coming. Appreciate it. Board members, any comments? All right.
Okay, and then lastly, on the strategic planning update, our consultant Baker Tilly, we've got the new contract in place. This is for both the update of the existing strategic plan, and that will be the last annual update on this version of it early next year, and then also on the development of the new plan. I want to thank Deputy General Manager Shauna Murray. She organized a staff leadership workshop which was held in mid-September, to get the management team thinking about the strategic plan, how they affect it and it affects them, and those critical relationships. And so we've begun that conversation to ensure that there's good buy-in and ownership of the plan by staff. You should have received an email from Eva towards the end of late last week, aiming to schedule interviews with the directors with the Baker Tilly team. And so if you haven't seen that, maybe check your trash bin just in case. And so where we're looking for the strategic plan update workshop, right now we're looking at February of 2025. And so we'll be working from here to that time frame, preparing for the update, and then shortly after the update, we'll then turn our attention to the development of the new plan. And so that's where we are on strat planning.
And great thanks to Deidre and the planning committee keeping this process going for all these years. I know that was tough to get it started. Board members, any questions or comments on this item? All right, did you have anything else? All right, thank you. Any member of the public want to speak on the general manager's report?
I've got a question for Ara.
Oh, let me finish public first. Was there anyone online, Eva?
No hands raised.
In chambers, John?
Ara, next month, can you give us just a brief overview of how the HCP is doing, how the process is working, any, where you're at, and procedure, just so we can get updated on that?
Yes, great suggestion. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. We'll now move on to committee reports. We'll start with ResOps.
Let's see here. ResOp. That would have been the 26th of September. We went through our storage and release program, updated our schedule for year end. We always come up with a schedule for 12 months in advance and a preliminary, and then what actual numbers are. And it looks like our actual numbers will actually be about 1.5 feet higher or more elevation in Nacimiento and 6 feet more water in San Antonio than previously estimated back in April. Just went through O&M procedures, how everything is proceeding down there. There is I guess they had a couple of events at San Antonio, and that was it for ResOp on the 26th.
Thank you. And then we'll go to basin management.
That update was on that meeting was on October 2nd, updated the July-September data collection, well registration, second reading, that went to the board, and that was it for the BMP.
All right. And I do see planning was canceled, but do you have any comments? Okay. Personnel administration was canceled. Any comments anyway? Okay. Finance.
That was on the 4th of October. Went through year end, which was end of June. Our numbers were, I think that's period 14. So we've turned those into the county. We're just waiting for the county to massage the numbers, and we're hopefully going to get them back next month or in December to close our year 22-23. A couple interesting things. The hydroelectric revenue is up quite a bit this year. As of the end of April, we were at, let me see, where am I here? End of May, $1.4 million. And we still had June to report. So that we should have at least $1.5 million of revenue coming out of the hydro plant this year, which is money needed for an aging facility down there. Secondly, the county negotiated an agreement with the workforce, and that was a 3-year term. Basically, it was 4% a year for the next 3 years, which is 12%, plus health benefits, holidays, and extends the winter recess. I'm just bringing this up because just what the Water Resource Agency that is added to our bottom line was roughly $270,000 for the next 3 years. So that being said, everybody gets raises. Unfortunately, stakeholders don't get to vote on that, just the supervisors. So that was it for finances.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So out of that hydroelectrical revenue, first 300,000 going to CSIP, are we back implementing that, or?
No, we're not implementing that. We're doing the research to try to understand, what the relationship with hydro revenues and CSIP may be. And so we're just trying to understand the issue at this stage.
Yeah, the reasons it was done because South County paid into a project in the north end that was going to be reimbursed through hydro funds to appease the South County. And that was the reason it was implemented. And it was for operations and maintenance strictly. And that was to get the vote. And the paperwork's there. We need to dig it out and get it implemented so we can utilize some of those funds, because when we stopped paying it, we were in drought conditions. So you're not going to have that money every year. And we knew that when we proposed the monies going to O&M for the whole county. So
We're just trying to rebuild the record and so we can understand.
yeah,
that.
All right. Joint Water Resource Board, Board of Supervisors Leadership Committee.
Yeah, we had a lengthy agenda last week. Elise gave us the update on the spillway project she gave us today, as well as the Nazi Plunge Pool project. Ara updated us on CSIP, on the dam funding, as well as the Bond Road Levy project. And then Jason Demers gave us a presentation on the alert flood warning system and the maintenance required to keep that in motion.
All right, thank you. Any questions on any of those? Any member of the public who want to speak on, have any questions or comments on any of those items?
No hands raised.
Chambers, we have our informational items on number 11, our reservoir storage release update. On number 12, we have a list of the letters that are received. So we'll now move to Board of Director comments. I'll start here on the right with Mike, and nothing, right? Nope. John, I was waiting for you to cough. Mark, Matt, Mark, did you have anything?
I just want to comment on the letters that came in regarding Shandon. I appreciate it, and I think more public input is going to do good. Thank you.
Deidre? Jason? All right. As always, want to thank staff for all the great work that they're doing. And as you get prepared for the next rainy season, which is always busy as hell, thank you again, everyone. We'll adjourn this meeting at 1:55 p.m.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.